All right, it's good to be with you again today. I work with so many couples who struggle with differences in their relationship, and they're very concerned about those differences and the potential that those differences have to create disconnect in their relationship. So today I look forward to talking with you about 3 ways to keep your differences from creating disconnect in your relationship. So stay tuned. Okay, so 3 ways to keep your differences from creating disconnect in your relationship. Now, this is a topic on many couples' minds. As I mentioned earlier, many couples deal with differences. In fact, all couples will deal with differences because there's no 2 people that are exactly the same. And because there's no 2 people that are exactly the same, we're all going to bring a little bit different style and approach and preference and desire and expectation and hope and dream and aspiration to our relationships, right? We're going to have a few of those differences that every couple deals with. And we want to focus on how we can work past those differences in a way that they don't have to create disconnect in your relationship. That's what this video is all about. So I'm excited to share with you 3 ways that you can do that. 3 really effective ways that you can help bypass kind of the destructive nature that those differences can create sometimes, and keep a strong bridge of connection in your relationship. So let's jump right in on that. So the first way that you can work to keep your differences from creating disconnect is to appreciate and value the differences. Now you might say, hold on a second, Evan, appreciate and value the differences. Aren't the differences the problem? And I would say not always, right? There are some differences that can create great difficulty for a relationship, especially if they're in kind of the core value-focused, moral-focused parts of your relationship, right? Those core values, sometimes if they don't align with good congruence, can cause relationships a lot of hardship and heartache, right? But most of the differences that we deal with don't actually have to be extremely divisive. It really just depends on the way that we handle them, the way that we approach them. So I would suggest that in many situations, learning to appreciate and learning to value those differences is really key in preventing disconnect, right? So there's a few ways that you can do this. The first thing is you want to learn about those differences, and you want to learn about them without being so threatened by them. We don't want to be so sensitive or scared that there's differences in our relationship. As I mentioned earlier, there always will be. Many people don't ever really settle down into long-term lasting relationships because they're so nervous about differences as they find them. It's almost like red flags for them that they want to run away from those differences versus leaning into those differences and learning more about them. So you can learn about these differences. And as you learn about them, learn to appreciate them, right? Recognize them for what they are, right? They add flavor to life. They add new experience to your relationship, right? They may introduce you to things that you normally want to introduce yourself to, right? They can spice things up a little bit, get you out of your routine, get you out of your habit, introduce you to new things, and ultimately they can help you grow. Now, I'm a big believer in the idea that our relationships aren't just to bring us happiness and comfort. I mean, it's part of the reason that we get into them, right? We appreciate kind of the way they enrich our lives. But even beyond the way that our relationships enrich our lives, they have the potential to grow us. And if you're focused like me on living a life of growth, right? Not just staying stagnant, but really pushing and refining and developing yourself over time, relationships have a great potential for doing that. Right? Our differences are one of the major ways in which we can grow in the way that we think. We can expand our vision, right? We can expand our perspective. We can push ourselves into refinement of things like patience and kindness and gentleness, right? That we can work on things like humility, understanding other people, making room for other people, sacrificing sometimes for other people. All these ways that are so healthy for us to grow. In psychology, we call that self-actualization. Right? This learning to become the best version of ourselves. And differences in the relationships have a real potential to help refine those qualities in us. So if you can learn to appreciate those differences, right? Appreciating them for the flavor and the new experience, the intrigue, right? The things that they would introduce you to, as well as appreciating them for their growth potential, the way in which they can refine you into a better, more whole, more well-rounded, more grounded person, that leaning into them and appreciating them can really go a long way in keeping those differences from creating disconnect. So that's the first one. Learn to appreciate them, learn to value them. The second way in which you can help keep your differences from creating disconnect is to make room for both. Now, what I mean by making room for both is taking those differences that we have in our relationship and trying to meld them together, right? If our relationship is made up of my preferences plus your preferences, making sure that we're both making room for a little bit of both preferences to make it into the relationship. This topic reminds me of a couple that I worked with recently, and one of the differences that they were struggling with is that she really enjoyed traveling and he was quite a homebody. So as they bring their relationship together, right, most of the time that they have free time, that they're not at work or they're not engaged in the civic responsibilities that they had, right, that he wanted to be home and working in the yard, working around the house. He had lots of projects and he enjoyed projects and would like to spend most of his time engaged in those projects. And if he wasn't working on a project at home, he liked to sit in a hammock in the backyard, or he liked to sit on the couch and catch up on a show. He's very much a homebody. He didn't need a lot of travel. He didn't need a lot of socialization. He really enjoyed being home. And he really wanted her to be there with him. He loved spending time with her in the home, on projects, relaxing, whatever else it is, right? For her, very different, right? If there was time that they were off of work and they had some free time, especially if it was like a long weekend or something, she wanted to go, right? Like she wanted to travel. She wanted to be out in their community, exploring and experiencing new things. She wanted to travel in their state, nationally, internationally, right? She wanted to experience the world, right? Which is like the exact opposite of being a homebody. And so this created some clashing in their relationship a little bit. As they grew their relationship and got closer together, they started to realize there were real differences that they were having in this area. They were creating disconnect in their relationship. In fact, it was creating arguments in their relationship. They were starting to have conflict over this, right? She was frustrated that he always wanted to be home. She was frustrated that she wanted to spend all this money and travel. And as they would clash with each other a little bit, they experienced disconnect. So as we worked on this principle of making room for both, they started to lean in to those differences a little bit in the relationship, right? She started to focus on how can I spend a little bit more time with him in these home environments, right? Are there some projects that I can engage him with? Are there some of the relaxation things that I can do around the home? Is it okay for me to sacrifice a weekend or two once in a while to be there with him and to do that with him, to enjoy that with him, right? Super fulfilling for him. Can I find a room in my life and in my preferences to join him in those preferences, right? And the same for him. He really set a goal to do some traveling with her, right? To take one weekend out of the month to go out into the community or in their state to travel, and 3 times a year, right, to do something a little bit bigger of a trip, right? And maybe one international a year. And so that was a goal that he set for himself, right? Trying to dedicate opportunities to go be with her, to explore and experience life on a little bit bigger scale. As they did this, right, they created room for one another in the relationship. Sometimes she would travel a little bit more without him. Sometimes he would stay home a little bit more without her. And then they would look for opportunities to do these things together more frequently. Now, one of the keys in applying this one is that when she would be home with him, we really encouraged her to lean into that and enjoy it, right? Don't stubbornly be at home being like, I wish I was out somewhere else, right? But to try to really lean into that, to allow it to be good for him. If she's going to make the sacrifice, she might as well make it good, right? Make it land, make it count. And the same for him with traveling, right? If the whole time he's frustrated and annoyed at the projects that aren't getting done at home because he's out traveling with her, it's going to kind of take the fun out of traveling. So really trying to lean into that experience while he's with her. Take it in, enjoy it, right? Allow her to have fun. That really allows the sacrifice to land. And if you're going to make the sacrifice, it might as well count, right? It might as well be pro-relational. So So make it good for your partner if you're going to do this accommodating and allowing room for both. Now, the third principle is to try to rub off on one another, right? And what we mean by rubbing off on one another is allowing kind of these differences to expand us as individuals, right? So I had this other couple that I worked with, and she really enjoyed the finer things of life. She liked to dress up, right? Like she liked to go to fancy restaurants. She liked to do some shopping, right? She liked to go out dancing. It really helped her feel fun and engagement and beautiful and excitement, right? To enjoy some of the finer things of life. And he was a little bit different than that. In fact, he really enjoyed the rustic things in life. He liked camping, right? Like he liked getting out and doing things in the outdoors, camping, hiking, fishing, right? And in those situations, it's a little grungy, right? Like it's a little dirty, it's a little grungy, and it's definitely very connected to nature, which just kind of opposite of her personality a little bit. She liked clean, she liked nice, she liked elegant, right? And so this was a difference in their relationship. Learning to rub off on each other, right, just means, are there ways in which she can kind of adopt a little bit more his style and ways that he can adopt a little bit more her style, right? Is it so harmful for him to kind of put on a nice shirt, maybe a tie, some slacks, right? Dress up well and go out and have a nice dinner once in a while? And does it really have to create such problem for her, to pull her hair back, right? Throw on the t-shirt, a pair of shorts, some hiking shoes, and go out and enjoy nature for a few hours or for an overnight, right? Learning to apply some of these differences that we have and allow them to rub off on each other. It just expands us as human beings when we do that, right? We just allow ourselves to become a little bit more well-rounded, right? That she can have some fun in the dirt and that it's not going to really hurt anything. And he's thrilled by it, right? And I don't have to love playing in the dirt or going fishing or going camping for an evening. I don't have to love that if I don't want to, but I can learn to love it because I love you and you love it. And if you love it, I love you enough to try to let myself enjoy it, right? And the same for him with her, right? Putting on those nice clothes, going out shopping once in a while, going out and seeing a show together, right? These are things that she really enjoyed, and allowing that to rub off on each other. When we do that, like I mentioned earlier, we just become more well-rounded individuals, and our relationship doesn't have to sacrifice so much in order to have connection. We can learn to meet each other in the middle a little bit and rub off on one another in a way that I learn to appreciate some of these things a little bit more with my partner. So these are the things we want to do. Any two individuals that we bring together into a relationship, they're going to need to learn how to do this. They're going to need to learn how to appreciate and value the differences they have. They're going to need to learn how to make room for both of those differences, both those preferences, right? Like both of those needs, those desires in the relationship. And they're going to need to learn how to rub off on each other, right? How to allow influence from each other to kind of grow and expand my horizons, that I don't just stubbornly stay stuck in my ways and make you do all kinds of accommodation if you want to be connected to me, right? But instead that I can give a little and rub off a little on you, you rub off a little on me, and together we get a little bit more well-rounded in our relationship. All right, so let's talk of application for a second then. What I want you to do is to take one of the differences that you're recognizing in your relationship, right? So think right now about your partner and write down one difference that you're recognizing that you have in your relationship. After you have that difference, right, off to the side of it, I want you to brainstorm how you could appreciate that difference more, to value it and appreciate it. What would you do to value and appreciate that difference more? The next thing you're going to do after you've kind of brainstormed how you could value and how you could appreciate it, how you can make room for their preference or their need or their desire that's a little different than yours, how you could do that more in the relationship. How can I make more room in our relationship for this difference? Now, the third thing you're going to do is you're going to ask yourself, how can I allow this difference to rub off on me? What are some things I can do in the relationship to allow that difference to kind of affect me, maybe grow me, help me adopt it, right? Or adjust to it a little bit more. How can I let it rub off on me in a way that improves me and gives me a little bit more well-roundedness, right? So that's an exercise that I would love for you to do as a couple, to take a look at those, learn to appreciate them, learn to make room for them, and then ask yourself how you can allow them to rub off on you. So those are my 3 strategies, right? Take those 3 strategies and apply them. And in the comments below, let me know if you're already practicing one of those. And if you're not already practicing one of those, let me know which one you plan to implement, right? As always, I'm so grateful to be with you. Really enjoy this time to spend together. I hope you'll take these principles, apply them, and enjoy a more enriched relationship with one another, kind of bypassing the disconnect some of your differences can bring and melding your relationship closer together. Until next time, be well, and I look forward to being with you again. So